our dance. We just missed out. We were ready to entertain a little bit. Just like normal theater, you know. All right. So that was our introduction for our game Phantasmagory. So I am the project lead, and I'll just do a quick recap on our story. So for our story, our game centers around a puppet master who is living in a delusion because he believes that his deceased daughter's soul is in a puppet. So the inside of his puppet theater has become distorted and eerie to reflect the memories of him and his daughter. So we play as Vivi, who is a porcelain doll who belongs to the daughter, and we are being chased by different creatures and environments in this world that the puppet master is controlling because he cannot control us. So he sees us as a threat to his perfect world. So when it comes to our gameplay for our game, we are a third-person horror puzzle game. So we are using our main mechanic as a needle and thread mechanic. This is not just a simple grapple, we're using it as a tool to create an emergent environment. So basically, using the abilities that this needle and thread gives us, we will be able to go through multiple unique and variety of environments and use our needle and thread to do basically endless opportunities with the environment. So using those mechanics that I'll show soon, we'll be able to interact in a bunch of different ways. So here's an example of one of our mechanics. This mechanic with the needle and thread is that the needle sticks into certain materials, and then when you pull it, you can pull objects of a lighter weight than yourself. So an example here would be if we needed to get up somewhere high, we could use our needle and thread to pull a piece lower and then use it to jump over. So when it comes to more complex puzzles, we could use this mechanic to pull large machinery or puppet parts, or anything that we would need to pull out of the way or to make something work. So another one of our mechanics is our swing mechanic. So when an object is heavier than ourselves, like a beam or a part of a building, we'll be able to pull ourselves up on the string and then swing past to go to another environment. So even though we are not a platformer, we are using our mechanics as a way to traverse this environment. So when it comes to our world, we have a huge emphasis on atmosphere. So just to go through our areas again, the workshop is our first area, which is where the puppets are made. The backstage area is where all of the old props and the old star puppets are stored. And then our main stage is where the delusion of the puppet master will be fully shown, where he's believing that his daughter is still alive. So when it comes to our environment, our atmosphere is the most important thing to us. So we did tour Dr. Phillips Center to get reference for real-life theaters that we could use for our actual theater sets. So our team went on a fun little trip to the Dr. Phillips Theater, which is right downtown, and we got a lot of really good inspiration for our environment and our overall atmosphere and game feel. So up next, I will just show our demo of our vertical slice. I will just let the level speak for itself rather than talking over it. One other thing I wanted to mention that we will be showing is that the needle and thread mechanics we want to make so immersive that it feels like it will interact with anything in the world and we can manipulate anything. So that is part of the feel we want to achieve. Slice demo. Now, all right, so back to our presentation. Okay, so as shown in our demo, the ways that we want to show our amazing atmosphere is not only with intense lighting, but also sound effects and music that adapts to the scenes that you move in. So I'm not sure if you noticed, but in the area where we entered with the puppet, the music actually changed, and through each area, the music also changed. So going into our actual metrics for our game, first with our character Viviette, the main doll, our concept art took our artist 8 hours, proxy model took 14, her rig 22, and then her game ready mesh was 39 hours, making overall 83 hours for our main character. When it comes to other models, like our other puppets we're planning to have in the game, this one is Jean-Pierre, who is our main villain for our vertical slice. He took 6 hours, 13 for his proxy model, 8 for his rig, and then 14 for his game ready state. So when it comes to our side enemies, this one took 40 hours, so about half the time as our main character, which is a very good workflow for us since we're planning to have 5 characters total, including our main character and this one. So we have good metrics for that. And when it comes to our level design, we are planning to have those 3 areas I explained earlier. So this area for vertical slice is sort of an example of a slightly smaller version of what our areas would be like. So our white box took 20 hours, set dressing took 40, our lighting took 8 hours, and overall, and our cinematography took 14. So our cinematography is another part that I didn't mention for our atmosphere. We have the dynamic adaptive camera that adjusts based off of where you are in the scene. So that adds that cinematic feel that we want our game to have. And overall, 82 hours for that one level. So our team also created 40 unique assets just for vertical slice. We only used a couple things from asset packs, I think, but almost the entirety of the level was made fully by our artists. So they did an amazing job. I just want to give kudos to all of our artists. They worked incredibly hard on all of these assets and characters. Along with that, we actually have 17 unique animations for our game so far. We're using a pretty extensive locomotion system that has been being developed over time and will be continued to be developed so that the feet always match up with where it is on the ground and the stride always matches the speed of the character. So when it comes to our actual team metrics, one of the things that's really important to us is our team satisfaction. So when we were noticing a few bottlenecks, we were trying to think of ways to improve that. So when we took surveys of the team, we noticed that communication and collaboration could be a little better. So to improve that, we did things like one-on-one meetings, more track collaboration and communication, and our statistics rose between 2 sprints already a little bit, but even with that small change, our velocity increased a lot. So increasing the communication, increasing the morale of the team really increases our own velocity. So as you can see by our numbers, these are story points per hour, so our team has been working with difficult tasks at a faster rate. And when it comes to our milestones, we're using the data from our velocity to determine when we will be able to reach these goals. So by using that data, we were able to determine that by April, we will be able to have our main characters, our main scenes, our story beats, and our main puzzles. So small puzzles would be like things you saw moving boxes and climbing. Main puzzles would be like the one you saw dropping the giant puppet. It would be a large puzzle that affects the entire environment. Our second milestone we calculated for June 22nd or to 26th. And that would be all of the puzzles complete, our narrative complete, final level design, and our start to end gameplay. And then our last milestone, July 15th to 19th, would be our final background music and sound effects, our bug fixes, polish, final UI, and then we are planning for a Steam release. So we are going to be working towards having a full Steam release. We obviously are accounting for that in our pipeline. And all of our statistics here were calculated with a 80% rate. So it's not the full capacity of our team to make some extra room. So we will obviously continue working all the way until August, but it was very good to determine these metrics to know that we are on the right track. So by those time, by August, at the end of those milestones, we will be able to achieve 140 unique assets, 68 animations, 3 large levels, and 5 characters. So that's not exactly what's in our plan per se, but that is what we are capable of as a team and what we know that we are able to do. And that is all. Thank you.
Yeah, sure. I'd be happy to. Very interesting work. Definitely, I think that you folks are focusing on your atmosphere, which is a great thing, and you're really focusing on getting that needle and thread mechanic in there, which I think is really coming across and going here. I have to say that it's really impressive, the level that you've built and all of the props and so forth that are moving around. Things are really starting to come together, and all the pieces are in place. You've got the character, you've got the props, you've got a main villain, you've got some of the visual effects, you've got the sound effects, all starting to integrate, and you've got one kind of theme encounter in there that really is introducing of where you're overall going, and I really like that. The one thing about the lighting, I normally like to rag on situations, but the lighting is very consistent on this, and overall the lighting is what the lighting is. And I think maybe that might be a drawback point, is that it's too consistent, and that it ultimately what you're trying to do is you're trying to increase the tension, increase the fear factor in here, and that means is you're going to need some contrast in the emotion, and that's going to be done exclusively through the lighting, because your lighting is going to carry the emotional tempo of your entire game. And so you're going to have ups and downs, and you're going to need to have maybe some funny parts wrapped with really intense parts, almost like a Sam Raimi movie. And I think that's what really captures things. I love the fact that you're interactive with the main kind of like boss guy. I forgot what his name was, but it was really interesting the way he had that. And I thought it could have been played up a little bit in order to increase the tension. Where's the teasing? I wanted to be teased into coming closer into. I said, wait a second, you're getting closer to that big clown dude who's like nefarious. Right. And suddenly he comes alive and starts ripping after her, and so I said, oh my gosh, we gotta run. Okay, it was just kind of like the tension was always at a constant place, and I think that putting some contrast, some highlights and lowlights, and some changes would definitely help bring about more of a intense environment. The animation, I don't know if you intended to do this or not, or it was purposeful, was kind of jittery in places of the main character, and I'm not saying that that's a bad thing, because what it comes across almost, and this helps increase the creasiness, is that it comes across as a bit weightless, and it almost feels like a Brothers Quay animation, George Pal, or even Rankin Bass. And so those are stories that held a lot of emotion into them, but they also had kind of an emotional, intensive things. And there wasn't really too much skating going around. The villain didn't really feel like he was being dragged apart, but overall, it was overall very consistent and very sharp. I think, how far are you along with the visual effects as far as changing the visual look of the thread?
The visual look we just kind of started looking into. Before we spent most of our time just getting it to work right and have the right physics. We actually have a VFX that plays, and then as soon as the needle hits, it turns into a physical rope asset. So we have two different effects that we're using, and now we're looking into how we can make it look more ghostly and magical.
Right. I was initially looking for a little bit more anticipation and follow through of the animation. You know, it's almost like she's winding up and then hurling that needle like almost like a spear. But then, of course, that kind of the fact that it just kind of emerged from her, it kind of helps complement that kind of like that Brothers Quay kind of feeling. And I thought, well, that may be something that you might be able to work with. But overall, I think the only thing that's lacking other than here is I didn't really understand what the character wants and needs. I know she's a porcelain doll, and it kind of makes sense, and she looks like a porcelain doll, and she kind of like behaves, okay, if you had this merge of porcelain doll, what would she behave like? And I think that works. But there isn't any kind of indication of like what she wants. Is she trying to escape, or is she trying to kill the puppet master, or maybe she's trying to get something, you know, to attain something? And that's maybe something that the bad guy can kind of dangle in front of her. It's like, gun, you want this? Come and get it, you know. And once again, tease the player to kind of come in and grab it. And I think that was the only thing that was drawn from it. Everything is too consistent.
Yeah, we're planning to establish that more in the overall game, with the narrative, with the daughter spirit kind of guiding the porcelain doll.
Yeah, so that's the kind of thing that I'm kind of like looking for. My suggestion would be to find a definite direction as far as the animation is concerned, and bring in some variation of the lighting and so forth. You got some decent lighting going in there, and I think you could definitely vary things up in order to increase the attitude. So, but overall, I think that this project is really moving really well, and you folks are doing really strong, so good job.
Thank you.
So I got some notes that I'm going to send to you. I'm going to try to go a little bit faster, not this, but this is my personal opinion. I think that this game has the potential to be like one of the most visually compelling FIEA games that I've seen. I really dig it. I think it's really, really cool. Like I said, I think everything graphically is carrying through everything you're doing with your presentation and everything else like that, right? So really, really good job. I'm excited about the project. I want to just tell you, like, the character to me felt a little bit floaty, and I think maybe you've done that comment before. I don't know exactly what to do with it, right? Because it is making her feel artificial, but she is artificial, so then there's part of it that kind of works, but I want to make sure it doesn't feel like there's artificial gravity going on. So there's something there with that, and I think it's going to be some fine tuning that you're going to have to do with that.
We're planning to continue on with it.
Yeah. And from a presentation standpoint, I thought this was such an amazing presentation. My only complaint is you guys swapping out your PCs, because that created this weird down moment and blue screen and everything else like that. And again, I'm so impressed with everything visually. I'm like, don't stop, keep coming, you know? Yeah. And then, so these other concerns was like you make the environment feel like a little bit more alive with just some type of animations, and it could be like just cloth swaying, whatever. Like the other team had the grass thing going on, and that was really, really cool. But you're gonna have to figure out for you, like what can we do to make the environments not feel dead? It's creepy, it's definitely creepy, but how do you make it not feel dead?
I'm not sure if it's noticeable here, but at the beginning we have the gears in the wall turning, so
Yeah.
we could lean into
Yeah,
that.
so just more things like that, you know, I think that's really cool. Okay. Yeah.
Good, you got any comments for us?
Yeah, I gotta tell you, I love that you paced this somewhat slower, because as the character was moving, I was able to embrace the look of it. It was one of the first games I was able to look around and say, my God, this looks really cool. And it wasn't just buzzsawing through the game. So I really liked the pacing. To Chris's point, I don't know the motivation of why the character is doing what it's doing. I'm assuming that's going to be explained somewhere else. One of the things that I thought about is, if you do sound effects to this, you're going to have to be careful of something called the cocktail party effect, which is if you start doing good sound effects for every motion, if you miss one, it's going to be really super noticeable. And that happens in movies when they like fake a cocktail party scene and then you see somebody talking but you don't hear them. So make sure you get all of the sound effects, everything that falls down and things like that. Her footsteps seemed like she was wearing shoes, and not ballerina slippers to me. And I would find a softer footstep. And there's ways that you can put like 16 footsteps and have it automatically change between them so it doesn't go clump, 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 clump all the time.
The reason why hers were so loud is because her feet are actually porcelain, they're not cloth.
Yeah, I know, but then you're gonna hear like, almost like somebody's playing a drum through the game, so I don't know, that's a choice you're gonna have, you can just lower them a little bit, I guess. And the one other point that Chris was making, which I thought was really good, if you kind of did this sort of Hitchcock thing where we thought something bad was going to happen, or she's doing something and we think, oh, it's just a cat going by, but then it turns out to be the puppet. Like, you never gave us a red herring. It was very linear. It was like she was on a path, she did this, she did that. I would love to see some little tricks that explain the environment a little, because you got such a beautiful environment. I would love to almost explore the environment, and she thinks she has to do something, and I know in a demo we kind of like go and play all the points, that's the way we do it. So I would just play with what you have, but I'm really enjoying the way this looks right now, so just keep doing what you're doing.
Thank you.
Cool. All right, I don't think there's anybody else because Ron doesn't need to talk.
It's a team.
It's a team. So I think this game has the best sort of mood-setting opening video of the 4 that I've seen so far. It really does kind of create exactly the atmosphere that you're aiming at. And I just love that. I saw that and I was like, I already like this game. I haven't seen shit, but I already like it. So that is really well done. In fact, I have a lot of positive things to say about the overall presentation, like Nick. The whole thing just has a style to it that's great. Like Nick, I just could totally thrown out a moment by the blue screen, so definitely want to change that. You got a lot of good movement and engagement in there. It's really good. The one thing that I'm going to notice that probably nobody else notices or gives a crap about is that you had this really nice, simple styling in your sandbox demos of the mechanics. It wasn't cluttered up with weird stuff or having inappropriate graphics in there, like objects floating in the air because a tech designer was experimenting. Like, it looks like somebody cleaned it up intending to make it look good, and it does make it look good. It's one of those little details that makes a presentation go better. So, kudos for that. I had some questions about some questions and observations. The rope climbing animation is going to be tricky. You're going to have to put a lot of effort into that. I saw sort of weird things happening. It's kind of sliding a little bit. The hands aren't always attached to the rope. When it changes directions in the pendulum, the character sort of teleports to the other side of the rope. So there's going to be a lot of work. So I'm not saying it's bad. I mean, we're early yet, but make sure you plan a lot of time for that, because as Rich was saying, you've got this sort of, what do you call it, cocktail party effect?
Cocktail party effect.
Yeah, I always call that type of thing, whether it's audio or anything else, the uncanny valley, which is basically you get a whole bunch of things right, and then you only notice the bad things, right? So there's so much good style in this game, like you have to be perfect with everything. So definitely don't overscope and put lots and lots of time aside for those things. You also, there's been comment from a couple people about the character feels floaty. And in addition to the character feeling floaty, we kind of get the same feel when the boxes fall. They're just as floaty as the character. So it does really feel like there's a sort of a gravity thing going on here, because maybe you could say it's appropriate for her, but like I still expect a box to fall like a box. So those probably need to be punched up a little bit. Also occurs to me, I think you mentioned you get a bunch of different locomotion animations, which is good. I think the variety is really going to help. I'm wondering if you could do something a little bit more stylish with some of the jumping animations. People always just sort of cheap out on jumps. They just put it in a static position or a little floaty thing. And I don't know if you've ever seen like some of the characters in like World of Warcraft, like the elf character, when he jumps on a rock, he does like a forward somersault and lands funny. There's cool things that you can do with the locomotion to give it a little bit more style, and I think the more style, the better. I thought the bridge collapsing scene was really cool, but obviously yet another animation you need, because she just sort of stays like completely vertical and just kind of weirdly slides down. So you have to figure out something you're going to do with that. I appreciate what you were doing with the sound effects and the music and the dynamic camera and the lighting to try to establish that horror vibe. I think it sort of worked, but I don't know. I feel like you can do some more brainstorming to try to come up with some other stuff to add to it, because it's not quite as creepy as I think you can make it, right? So put some time into that. Figure out some other things that you can do, because it's not quite there yet. You said you had 40 assets, and they all look like they were done, right? They're not untextured.
Yeah, they're all
textured and done.
textured.
I mean, they look like it. And I think
There's a
somebody
couple
are.
proxies and like there's 4 that aren't.
Yeah.
Everything else is.
Yeah, but I think somebody mentioned that sort of like, wow. There's some teams that give us 40 environmental assets in capstem, not in vertical slice. So I think you need to buy a large quantity of alcohol for your environmental line. So that's pretty stunning, and they're all good looking. Like your art team. I mean, across the board, I don't see any weaknesses here. Art and atmosphere is just a massive strength of this game. So you can keep that up. You're gonna go in places. I definitely loved the stats for the morale and how it impacted velocity. That's the type of stuff I eat up with a spoon, so you're playing to your audience, that's good. I did not see focus group testing on your schedule. And one of the things that kind of occurred to me as I was watching the gameplay, and this is normal at this stage where we are exploring with the abilities and we can swing from stuff and we can drag stuff towards us and other stuff. Those are kind of what I usually call like first order thinking. We think of the obvious things, and you call them light puzzles, I think, whatever, yeah, simple puzzles. And that's great. Right now, the only thing that kind of felt like it might be a little tricky is the one where you pull the pins to make the bricks collapse. I think you want to especially pay attention to whether your focus group tests indicate that your audience is finding the puzzles challenging enough. Right now, I mean, again, it's first order thinking, so they're never super challenging at this state. But that's something you want to put a lot of thought into. Again, so I'm always advocating like just crush scope and make what you do really good. Now, one of the challenges you have sometimes when you make more difficult puzzles is you don't want players to get frustrated. You don't want it, so there's always that balancing act. How do I make a puzzle that's challenging but doesn't piss them off and then they quit playing the game? Just as a sort of a suggestion, some of the puzzle games that I've seen that actually do a good job with that, they kind of encourage you to keep going even though you're wrong over and over and over again, is to kind of reward failure. So the player can do a lot of things in the environment, because you said everything is interactable. If everything is interactable, then you probably ought to be able to find things in the environment that don't actually progress the puzzles but still entertain the player in some way. Whether you do that by introducing more horror elements or jump scares, or just even, I think you got some great suggestions from Chris about like varying the pacing and maybe have a little cutesy or humorous moment to kind of really offset the horrifying moments. So you can, I would look to see how you can leverage the environment to kind of reward the player to explore. That way you can make puzzles harder and they're still entertained while they're trying to figure it out. I think some of the best puzzle games, it feels like, and you may not want to go this far, but it feels like you have like 10-to-1 failures that are entertaining to actual solutions to the puzzle. I don't know how far you want to go, but like the more you do with that, I think the more it feels like a real world, and the harder you can make the puzzle, because the player is still being entertained when they're not getting the solution yet. So overall, this is really cool. I'm looking forward to seeing more of this. You put a sort of a big burden on yourself in that everything is so close to perfect that now you have to be perfect everywhere. You set a high bar, and it is what it is. I mean, that's the only way across the uncanny valley, is to not make any mistakes. I think you guys have got a shot at it, so I'm definitely looking forward to seeing this game going forward. Everybody in this team should be stoked, because this is pretty awesome.
Thank you.
All right, call it a day.